Good morning, children. Here I am today with you to share some insights regarding how to crack and how to ace the board examination, and especially in the subject of chemistry, which perhaps a lot of people think to be challenging because they study a lot and yet they find chemistry to be a subject where they tend to forget a lot of concepts no matter how much effort they put in, yet they are not able to recall concepts and score marks well. For some people, it does come easy, but others, they do complain. So here are my insights, which I have earned and I have gained over so many years of experience. And I truly would want them to be shared with you so that each one of you come out as a winner. So as I start with my session, in today's session, I would say that the approach which you adopt when close to the exam has to be slightly different from what the approach has been throughout the year. For the entire year, when you study for your subject, you are learning in a very linear manner. You are learning chapters one after the other, and you are learning the concepts which are so new to you. But at the end of the year, when it is exam time, it is also very important to understand the perspective and the approach to know the chapter, to know what content to be focused more in a certain chapter as compared to other. It is also equally important for you to know the type of questions which can be asked and the approach of cracking those questions. You should also know the kind of errors which children, which students commit, and you can easily overcome those. So here is what I have planned for you. You need to know the blueprint of the question paper really well. You should also know the tips for the better time management, because optimizing your time is the key towards success, both during the preparation time and also when you are writing your exam. If you know your chapters well, it is very important for you to know what are the topics and the subtopics within a given chapter. That is how you can tackle the HOTS variety of questions, which are the high order thinking skill, and the analyzing and the concept based and the application oriented questions. Because CBSE has been mentioning of including the or increasing rather the percentage of competency based questions. Competency based questions are nothing very special. They simply are those questions which relate the concepts of a subject to the day to day life, and so they become the competency based question. Any subject is of I in my personal opinion, chemistry, or for that matter any subject, doesn't become alive unless we learn to apply it. So it's very important for us to know what the subtopics are and their application in daily life. Then it is important to know the common sources of error. As I mentioned, practicing again is the key. So here I share with you the syllabus and the blueprint. I'm sure you all know the syllabus, and this is as per the sample paper which board has uploaded. And I have tried to write it down in the form of a grid, because knowing it in the format of a grid truly is helpful to analyze better. So we have got 12 questions which are the MCQ variety. Then there are 4 which are reason assertion. Then there are questions which are your 2-mark questions. We have got 7 3-mark questions. There are 2 case-based questions, and there are 3 which are 5-mark questions. So erroneously here, I apologize for that. For 2-mark question, it's mentioned 2. It is in fact 5. There are 5 2-mark questions which are included. These questions do have got internal choices as well. Now, a lot of children think when choices are given, it becomes easy for you to approach, it becomes easy for you to answer. However, if there are options given in the question, it would rather mean that you are given more choices, and you need to plan well that out of 2 options given to you, which one is to be attempted by you. For that, it's very important that you utilize your time well. So here is the layout of the question paper. for which there are total 33 questions. Section A has 16 multiple choice questions. Section B has 5 short answer questions which carry 2 marks. One question has a choice in it. Section C has 7 questions, and out of these 7, once again there is one question which has a choice. Section D has 2 case-based questions. For each of the question, there is a paragraph given, and based on the paragraph, there are 3 questions given. The first 3 A, B questions, they are for 1 mark each. They may require you to write a line. Question C subpart of the case-based carries 2 marks, and this C question has an internal choice. So that is how the 2 questions of the D section carry 4 marks each. Section E has 3 long answer questions, and each of these questions carry 5 marks. There are choices given. Till last year, one of the 5-mark questions had the pattern where there were 7 subparts given, and out of 7, 5 were to be attempted. However, in the sample paper this year, we got questions where one full consolidated question given, an or given, and again the next question consolidated given. What you should never do is pick and choose the subparts from before or and after or. It should either be the full question before or the full question after or. Mixing and matching would mean that you are going to lose mark because the evaluator will choose either of the two, will not give you marks for the options chosen from both the internal choice question. So you need to be really careful about this. Examination hall is a place where anxiety is at its peak, and these are the points which you need to keep in mind. Now, when you're talking about your syllabus and your question paper, as per the sample paper and the blueprint, for physical chemistry, the marks allotted are 23 marks. Solutions, electrochemistry, and chemical kinetics are the chapters which come under physical chemistry. For inorganic, the marks are 14, and the chapters are D&F block and coordination compound. Similarly, for organic chemistry, the marks are 33 marks. However, there are 5 chapters in this. And the list is haloalkenes, haloarenes, alcohol, phenols, and ethers, aldehyde, ketones, and carboxylic acid.
Ma'am.
We then have amines. Yes, sir. Sorry, someone did, I think, have a query. May I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Children will take query after the session or
Okay.
yeah.
Because someone spoke,
But
so I
you can
thought
adjust
maybe
your
they...
camera a little. We'll not able to see your full face actually.
Not able to see?
Yeah, now it is better. Yes.
It's better?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next chapter is amines, and finally we have biomolecules. It's very important to know the approach how to study the 3 branches of chemistry. Physical chemistry mainly focuses on numericals, give reasons, application-oriented questions. There are graphs, there are derivation. Now, physical chemistry is very heavy on concept. If you know the concept well, you don't forget the concept. However, revisions are desired because if you don't revise, you tend to forget. There are a lot of children who complain that physical chemistry is difficult. It is basically, it's more conceptual in its approach. If you know the concept, you don't forget the concept. However, the story is slightly different when it comes to organic chemistry. I jumped in between regarding inorganic chemistry. I'll come to inorganic chemistry after a while. Organic chemistry truly is the branch of chemistry which requires a lot of repeated effort. It is volatile, it's organic, it's volatile. And you do tend to forget it the moment you are out of touch. So what I suggest and what I recommend my students at my school is you must take out half an hour every day as a daily practice, as a daily ritual, half an hour daily to revise organic. Start from one end of organic and continue revising at least half an hour. And as you revise on a daily basis, as you move on to the next day, visit your previous day's work for 5 minutes initially, move on. And that is how you are constantly in touch with organic chemistry. It is a daily routine. You must take out half an hour on a daily basis. Only then can you have a good command over organic chemistry. Or else, if you learn today, give a gap of 20 days. Mark my word, children, you're bound to forget organic chemistry. It doesn't stay with you for long. It's not true for physical. Physical, as I mentioned, is more concept based. However, when it comes to inorganic chemistry, the chapters in your syllabus for inorganic chemistry, they do not have too many equations. They are DNF block. It's more of concept based. There are lots and lots of give reasons which are asked. There are very few chemical reactions, and that too you don't have to mug up at all. So the part of inorganic chemistry which was only memory based and required rote learning has been completely done away with. Coordination compound, it's a simpler chapter. It is more about your three-dimensional visualization, and it is also concept based. So, barring organic chemistry, the other two components, that is physical and inorganic, requires time to know the concept, but for regular revision, I again would emphasize on organic chemistry. Moving ahead to my next slide, it's sort of a repetition where we are talking about knowing the syllabus, concepts, question paper, utilizing your time to have optimal use of the time in hand, both during the preparation period and in the examination hall, and also to have a better knowledge of the common errors. Now, how do we optimize our time management in the exam hall? It is important to understand that either when you start writing the paper, you either attempt the paper in ascending order or descending order, which means you either begin with section A and question 1 and then move on to section E and question 33. Or you can start from section E and start with the first question of section E. Move then to section D. Start from the first section of section D. However, jumbling up the order of the question becomes extremely, I can say, confusing for you and during evaluation time. So I'll just share a practice which we take up when we are checking the paper. During the correction process, it's not just that we are checking the paper one after the other. After the paper correction is done, on the first sheet of the answer paper, we have to post the marks. Extreme care is taken by the teachers to ensure that no error, zero error is occurs when we are transposing the marks. Still, if there is any chance of human error happening where while transposing the marks some mistake happens, uh, there is a proper mechanism to take care of that as well. But from the end of the students, we also must ensure that teachers find it easy to check the paper. Therefore, I emphasize either you attempt the paper in ascending or descending order. You need to figure out which order works better for you. Starting from 1 mark question serves better for you, or starting from 5 mark question serve better for you. Well, if at all there is a question which you don't have the answer for at that moment, I suggest leave space for that. Put the question number, leave space so that you can come back to that question later. If you don't leave space, as the time progresses in the examination hall, chances are that you might forget that you left a question which has to be addressed later on. However, if you leave space while flipping the pages towards the end, that empty or that blank space will stick out to you and will tell you, come back to me. So I suggest leave space and then return to it later on. Also, I'll share one more thing which I have not included in my PPT. Sometimes, though very, very rarely, but in my tenure of so many years, this has happened twice. So if in my tenure of 15 years teaching senior secondary, it has happened twice, you never know if it might get repeated. Sometimes, though very, very rarely, if there is a question which is out of syllabus or the data is wrong, and that is realized later during the evaluation process. Then full marks are granted to those students who put the question number and who try and write the answer. Those who do not write the answer, those who don't even write the question number, they are given a zero. This is the directive which we get from the board towards the end. You won't find this anywhere. This is not in any written document, but this is something which I'm sharing out of my experience. Therefore, please make sure that you at least write the question number, and no matter how wrong the question may sound to you, do attempt. Because who knows that the question actually has been wrong with some error, and then you eventually will be awarded marks for that question. Now, what is extremely important is knowing the weightage and the time you will be devoting for that question. It is said that 1 mark question, they are all objective in chemistry. For 2 mark question, 2 or 3 lines, 40 words maximum. So here it speaks, my PDF speaks about the word limit according to the weightage of the question. There is another insight which I have to share with you, which I find to be better. Children also find that to be better. Whatever is the weightage of the question, double of those many minutes you should devote to that question. It means for a 1 mark question, 2 marks are good enough. For a 2 mark question, 4 marks, 4 minutes is what you should be giving. So tentatively, this is the time you should be giving to the question depending on the weightage. For a 3 mark question, you should be able to finish a 3 mark question in 6 minutes. For a 5 mark question, 10 minutes is a good enough time. However, there are some 1 mark questions which do not take more than 30 seconds, which take hardly maybe 5 seconds. So, in a way, you are averaging out your time. There can be some 1 mark questions which may take more than 3 minutes also, because they actually require you to solve the question and then arrive at the answer. So, what I'm telling you in terms of the time management and the time devoted is a tentative plan of the time given, but of course, over the entire paper, it does get averaged out. What you should avoid is, if it's a 3 mark question, unless it is the question framing is of a very objective framing in nature, summarizing or writing in few words is incorrect, because it would only mean that you are missing out on some keywords. Well, I move ahead further. The type of questions which can be asked from physical chemistry, they are analytical question, application, understanding. Inorganic, again, they can be logical reasoning as well. And organic chemistry, these are the type of questions based on the blueprint suggested by the board. I now come to chapter-wise, which type of questions and which concepts should you be focusing more. Before I begin chapter-wise analysis and the concepts you should be focusing on, it is extremely important. And this is something very, very essential. So please mark my word, very important to solve the chapter and exercise thoroughly. The in-text questions and the solved examples. Because if you have solved thoroughly the chapter and exercise questions and your in-text questions and the solved examples, 75 marks are with you. You have secured 75% marks. However, of course, you need to read the chapter thoroughly. You need to know your concepts properly, application, practice, other things also, to go beyond those 75 marks and to aim for your 100% marks. But you should start focusing from solving each question of the exercise. That's compulsory. Now, from solution, there can be situation-based questions asked. There are a lot of give reasons which can be asked. Give reason, justify, give plausible reason. All these mean it is give reason only. Now, when you are writing a give reason type of a question, you should understand how you should approach. There is a situation given in a give reason question. There is bound to be a concept. So you need to write the concept the cause, and relate the cause to the consequence. Just starting abruptly from because and writing your answer and not connecting it to the situation given in the question will many a times cause you also to lose the track. Because what the question, remember children, each question speaks to you. So when it speaks to you, you need to understand the language of the question. And this is exactly what you're doing in your initial 15 minutes. You're trying to understand the language of the question because it's communicating to you. So when you write your give reason, mind it, every give reason will be based on some concept. Make sure that you put the concept, the term of the concept in your question, in your answer. Because there are keywords, these are the value points, and there are marks allotted to the concept. Make sure that your framing of the answer is in a way to incorporate the term, which is the concept term. And then explain it and correlate that to the consequence. From the chapter solution, you may be asked to write a certain things like the value of I for maybe 2-3 electrolytes are given, and arrange them in the increasing or the descending order of their I factor, which is the Wanter factor, their alpha. So you should know where children go wrong many times is either when they are attempting the ascending and the descending order questions, they don't put the symbol for the ascending or the descending order correctly. They get confused what is ascending and what is descending, or they put commas. Please make sure that you know the symbol well. Well, how does ascending, what does ascending mean? What does descending mean? So ascending, descending, be very clear and please give your answer, or else you will unnecessarily, in spite of knowing your concept, you'll lose marks. So you need to avoid situations wherein you might lose marks. Applications include numericals. Numericals can be asked on concentration terms, various concentration terms which are in the initial part of the chapter. There are calculation of molar masses and colligative properties, they both being there. Want factor, extremely important concept. And the degree of dissociation or association. Alpha, I. Now, something which I will suggest is when you are writing the formula for any colligative property, prefer writing the formula which has I in that. Because if the given solute is a non-electrolyte, your I automatically is 1. But if your solute is a electrolyte, your I stands there and you will be compelled to think what the value of I would be. If you prefer using a formula which doesn't have I, you may simply forget about incorporating I. And when you fail to write about I, you don't get marks at all. Another thing which I have not mentioned here, but I'm telling you, please, when you write the numerical, attempt the numerical, it is important to first, for your sake, write the data. That's for your sake. Because then you would have a clarity regarding what is given to you. Make sure that when you write the data, you write it along with the units. This will help you to understand the compatibility of the units. Next, you should have a clear idea about what is to be found. So I emphasize students, my children, on this, that they must write the data, they must write what is to be determined. Because there are so many children who don't understand clearly what is to be found. So if it is clear to you what is to be determined, then the next part of to approach the numerical becomes easy. Writing the formula secures half a mark to you. Substitution of the values in the formula secures another half mark to you. The mathematical part, which is mainly the arithmetical part of the numerical, as such does not have any marks because we are not really testing the arithmetical skills. Eventually, your answer would be the outcome of your multiplication, division, subtraction, or addition would be the outcome, your answer. So your answer is given 1 mark. If you go wrong with your units, your half a mark is deducted. So a lot of numericals you would realize they carry 2 marks. There are certain numericals which carry 3 marks as well. Now mind it, these are those numericals which have intermediate steps in them, because then there are marks allotted for those intermediate steps as well. It's not just simply the formula, substitution, and the answer. Perhaps you are calculating something in between. As example, you're calculating, let's say, I. So that I would have another half a mark or maybe 1 mark. If I move on to electrochemistry, knowing the standard cell potential can be one of the intermediate steps eventually to be used in the Nernst equation. So such type of questions carry 3 marks. So mind it, the steps are very important. The approach for competitive exam is very different from the approach for your board exam. Board exam, during board evaluation, there are marks given for each step. And writing the step at least would ensure that you get marks for these intermediate steps as well. Now there are doubts regarding, ma'am, to how many digits of decimal should we round off the answer? I would suggest that when it comes to giving the answer for in joules, it's okay to round off up till the second place of decimals. And sometimes children do round off till the first place of decimal. When it comes to rounding off, calculate up till the third place of decimal, round it off to the second place of decimal. Don't ever, but when it comes to, this is okay for the answers coming out in joule and other concentration terms. But when it comes to the answer which have your EMF values, don't round off the answers. Because even a 0.01 volt has a significant amount of value. So an error up till even the second or the third place of decimal may cause you to lose marks. So knowing this aspect well, that which concepts, for which concepts can the rounding off is okay and for which ones rounding off is not okay. So for the answers of EMF, rounding off is not okay at all. Well, I move on after solution to electrochemistry. I did cover some aspects of electrochemistry in the previous slide, but again, you can have situation-based, give reason, justify. There are graphs, and graph-based questions can also be asked. Lot of time, I can say, barring maybe 1 or 2 years, each year there has been a question which has been based on identifying from the molar conductivity whether a given electrolyte is a strong or a weak electrolyte. The identification of a weak or a strong electrolyte. The weightation of their molar conductivity with dilution. Barring 1 or 2 years, each year, questions have been asked from the cells part. Various types of cell. So that part, the fag end of the chapter, is very important. Prepare it well. Electrochemistry, most of the years, a 5-mark question is asked, which means this chapter carries a lot of weightage. There are numericals, Nernst equation, definitely you'll have a question. Nernst equation, whether direct calculation of the EMF of the cell or calculation of the equilibrium concept or eventually calculation of Gibbs energy, there will definitely be one question. Degree of dissociation. Degree of dissociation appears in solutions also. It appears in electrochemistry as well. Either of the two places, you will have a question based on this concept. Then, Cole-Roche's law, conductivity, molar conductivity, give reasons are asked from here. Representation of a cell from the chemical equation or vice versa. Prepare well for this part. Representation from the given equation, redox reaction, or the other way around. Because only when you do this well, will you be eventually able to substitute in the Nernst equation properly, correctly, and proceed ahead. So these things need to be addressed in a very conceptual manner and systematic way. Things are all related to each other. Knowledge of the reduction potential and its application. You need that for the products of electrolysis. Products of electrolysis is also a concept where there can be equations given to you and concept asked. So there can be all varieties of these questions asked from this chapter. And as direct as stating the laws also can be asked to you. Prepare well on all of these lines. Regarding chemical kinetics. Now, chemical kinetics is a simple chapter, though there are graphs. Please know your graphs well. There are determination of the rate of the constant, order of the reaction, rate of the reaction, then rate constant, time of the reaction, half-life, activation energy. From chemical kinetics also, there have been times when a 4-mark question has been asked. There has been a time when a 5-mark question has been asked. More often, from chemical kinetics, they prefer splitting this chapter into 3-mark, 2-mark question, or maybe 3-mark and few questions in 1-mark category. So that is how they usually split from chemical kinetics. Very rarely have they asked a 5-mark question from chemical kinetics. But they do ask a question based on activation energy. Learn the correct interpretation of the graph. Derivations are also asked. Asking the differences between the order and molecularity is also quite a commonly asked question. And then you need to know these are the concepts which basically are asked from this chapter. Graphs are very important. They do ask about the intercept, they do ask about, and all these graphs are there in your book. I move on to the next part now, which is about the D&F block. Now, D&F block is heavy on give reasons. It's really heavy on give reason. Now, last year there was a question based on the graph. So if you know your concepts well, you can interpret the graph also. Surprisingly, in this chapter, there are maximum 8 concepts around which the entire chapter revolves. If you know the basic idea about the structure of the elements of the D block, it's so easy for you to understand this chapter and the various give reason type of questions. So there are 2 types of questions which are mainly asked from here. There are give reasons, a lot of give reason question. And then there are questions which are asked from the second part of the chapter, which is the salts of the oxoanion, their methods of preparation. Either they ask method of preparation of potassium permanganate or potassium dichromate. One of the 2 is definitely asked in the paper. Balancing of the redox reaction. So do prepare that really, really well. Well, it's again, as I said, when you are writing give reasons, you need to be very specific with your reason. Though I said there are 7 to 8 concepts based on which all the give reasons of this chapter can be framed, but writing because of the small size as the reason for all give reason questions is sort of overgeneralizing the answer. Overgeneralizing the answer does not secure marks for you. You can write small size, completely filled d orbitals or incomplete d orbitals, but do write the specific answer as well. Because these are those concepts which kind of they are applied to all the concepts, all the subheadings of the chapter. Read thoroughly, prepare your notes. If you prepare notes from this chapter, it really, really helps. Your individual notes will really help you. Moving further, from the coordination compounds, a question which without any anomaly, without any exception, has been asked each year, has been from the VPT part of coordination compound. And you are told that though, like 2 examples given, one of them, coordination number for both of them, 4. One of them is tetrahedral, the other one is square planar. One of them is paramagnetic, the other one is diamagnetic. Why? So you should know the correct approach to answer these type of questions. It becomes important to first write the electronic configuration of the ion. It becomes important then to show the hybridization that ion is undergoing, and then the ligand with which it is bonding, showing the correct number of unpaired electrons, and then correlating all of them with the concept of the question, the stem statement, the question statement is how you should be bridging them together, connecting them, linking them together, and then writing the answer. Always remember, support your answers with equations, with the diagrams, because at class 12 level, you are not generally asked to write equations separately or draw the diagram. However, if you draw the diagram, if you write the equation, it supports your answer. Because just in case you have forgotten or missed out on some key point, if your equation is there, that equation perhaps can automatically cover the key point. So don't forget to write the equation, to draw the diagram. From coordination compound, questions are definitely asked from the IUPAC name, the magnetic behavior, hybridization, strong and weak ligands, inner orbital, outer orbital complexes, CFT. Explanation of the terms are also asked. Well, uh, you are asked about the CFT, the splitting, the color of the complex, and if at all color of the complex, any question related to the color of the complex is asked, you have to include in your answer the term as DD transition. Because unless you mention about the DD transition, you don't secure mark. That is the key point. So that is how you incorporate in your answer the key point. You need to insert it anyhow. There can be application questions regarding the increasing, decreasing order, the electronic configuration, color of the ions, and the chelating property. So I have covered the coordination compound also. Regarding organic chemistry, again, you have got increasing, decreasing order of melting point, boiling point, solubility, certain properties like pKa value, pKb value, acidity, basicity, any other physical or chemical property attack towards the nucleophile and stuff like that. So you should know the concept well, only then can you answer the increasing, decreasing order of the isomers given a certain same molecular formula, which means you need to first draw the structures, know what the isomers are, and then move on with the answer. So for increasing, decreasing order, so many times the answer is not directly in front of you. You need to do the writing part, figure out what the answer would be, because drawing the structure, many times when condensed formulae are given to you, it's a good idea to draw the structure properly and then move ahead. If you are very confident, go ahead, save your time. However, if you draw the full structure and then proceed ahead, you eliminate the chances of error and losing marks. There can be give reason questions. Conversions are definitely asked. Distinguishing tests are asked. Missing reagents and products are also asked. And a question which I call as a paragraph based question, where you're told A, B, C, D. A reacts with B to give C, then C undergoes these changes to become D. Identify what A, B, C, D are and write all the equations. So you need to write down the first rough skeletal uh, uh, format, the skeletal changes which are happening, understand, and then proceed ahead. Do your rough work so well that the examiner can check your rough work also, because sometimes the examiners, though we are not guided to do so, but you never know, may check your rough work also and realize that perhaps if the child has written here correctly, please make sure that you transpose that properly. So please do your rough work also neatly, because in that moment of panic or anxiety, you should not make any error in transposing your content from a rough column into the fair side of your answer sheet. Now, next after this, I will take up some common errors which children do in chemistry, because of which they tend to lose marks. This may sound to be not answering the question as a common mistake. Yeah, yes, it is a common mistake where they're writing the paper in the order of the question I know the best. When they start writing the paper in the order, writing the question which they know the best and moving on to the one which they know the least, no matter how much they try, still chances are they might miss out on one question or maybe a part or a subpart of that question. Moreover, it does create a lot of difficulty for the evaluator. And when the evaluator is checking 30 copies per day, mind it, it's a difficult task. And if the answer sheet comes where the questions are jumbled up, either the evaluator may skip a concept, may skip an answer written by you, or it creates a lot of confusion in the evaluator's mind. We of course do not want that, because the paper needs to be dealt in complete discretion, which happens only when the evaluation is happening in a systematic manner. So all those ideas that start from the question which you know the best actually is not a very great idea, because you're not really impressing the evaluator. The approach was it will impress the evaluator. No, it doesn't impress the evaluator at all. This is what I'm sharing with you. Then, not looking at the marking scheme. So if you don't look at the marking scheme, you don't really know how much to write, what content to write. A 2-mark answer and you fill 2 pages for a 2-mark answer. It's not done, because number one, you have wasted your own time, which is so very precious. So you should know a 2-mark question doesn't deserve more than 4 minutes, doesn't deserve more than a certain number of scheduled words, and so should get over fast. Filling 2 sheets would mean, of course, you have spent more than 5 minutes attempting that answer. Look at the marking scheme, look at the mark allotted, and plan according to the marks, the weightage of the paper. Do not overgeneralize your answers. As I mentioned, writing the same reason for all and not being specific wouldn't secure any marks to you, because as evaluator we are looking for very specific answer. We do get marking scheme, and marking scheme says answers keep it provides us with the key points. So we are looking for the key points, and the key points aren't very different from what is given in the book. At this point, I will recommend that you can go to the CBSE site. You can check for the best answered copies. They are available on CBSE site. Subject wise, if you check the best answered copy, you would know what approach those children have adopted while writing the answer and how the value points have been awarded. We have to award value points close to where the concept is. So it's not just for chemistry. You can try this out for all subjects. Look for the best answered copies on CBSE site for you to know how can you write your answer properly. Then don't lose the scientific language, because writing in common man's language will not be securing any marks to you as to how conductivity change with dilution. As dilution increases, conductivity also decreases. Why? Just simply writing number of ions decrease. No. Number of children, I myself have given a 0. So what is expected is number of ions per unit volume. Because if you're diluting the entire solution, the number of ions remain the same, but per unit volume decrease. So you need to be very specific with your answer and not write a generalized answer. Spelling error, grammar, grammatical errors may sound to be kind of, is it science? Yes, because when you are not focusing on the grammar, your answer may mean absolutely divergent as compared to what you're trying to explain. So the errors which children might commit while attempting a numerical is posting of the data, copying the data wrongly, of course, you go wrong completely. You need to ensure that the units which you are using, they're in the proper system. So this is something, therefore I said, while writing the data, write the units. When you are substituting, I insist, substitute the units also. Then in a way, when you are solving the question, you are also side by side doing dimensional analysis, and that ensures that there is proper compatibility of the units. Any error taken care of at this moment. Write the formula because that carries half a mark. Perfect numerical value. I did mention to you, it's very important. Rounding off after the second, at the second place of decimal, it's okay, but not when it comes to calculating the EMF of the cell, because even 0.01 volt has a significant value, though 0.01 joule is a very, very tiny quantity, which can be ignored, but it's not so when it comes to volts. So this insight is also very essential. If you don't write the unit, you lose half a mark. Converse is not true. Writing only the unit but going wrong with the numerical value, you don't secure any marks. So if you think I write the unit correctly, I may go wrong with my numerical value, will give me half a mark? No. It's only when you have written the numerical value correct and then you've forgotten your unit, perhaps you can be given half a mark. It doesn't go the other way around. So please remember to write your units. Then do not ever rephrase the law statement, because if you rephrase the law statement, that's not accepted. It's a law. So need to be written in the same language. Writing the mathematical expression or the statement only is not okay. Write in words also. So if you're asked the definition of, let's say, mole fraction, define mole fraction. If you look in the book, it only gives you the formula. It doesn't give you the statement. But from the formula, you can formulate your definition, you can formulate the statement. So always, if it is asked state, then state. You can support it with the formula. That's okay. But always first write the statement. Because the teachers look for, the statement has been asked, the child has provided the formula. The board doesn't allow us to give marks for that. Not writing the principle behind the process, again, it's not a very done thing. Must write the principle behind. As example, supposing I'll take very simple examples. Supposing you take limp carrots or wilted flowers, keeping them in water for some time will make the flowers fresh again. Why? No matter how much explanation you do, if you do not write the word osmosis, you will lose half a mark. So the principle behind the process need to be incorporated in your answer. Then the graph-based questions. You need to ensure that you write the variables correctly along both the axes. If you are being asked to draw the graph, you are not usually asked to draw any graph from the numerical data in chemistry. But just in case you have to give a rough idea about a graph, must write the two axes. As example, for chemical kinetics, there are certain graphs for the various orders of reaction. So you must draw the graph along with that, the axis also correctly. The slope, the intercept must be mentioned correctly. Differentiate the differentiation between the two concepts. Please write in column because evaluators do look for the corresponding point. And the basic idea behind asking a question on differentiation is to have a horizontal learning. So it's important to make columns and then write the contrasting feature. At this point, I'll tell you one more thing. Though it's not included here, but still I will, as a teacher, it's come to my mind, so I will have to mention that. Throughout the year, we are doing only linear learning, learning one thing after the other. Now is the time for you to do some horizontal learning as well. And only when you do horizontal learning, do you learn to apply your concepts. Your application becomes strong only when you are comparing, contrasting, making mind maps, making flowcharts. All this comes under horizontal learning. So incorporate this second dimension also in your learning. Will help you with the hot variety of questions. So you need to be careful about writing to the point and not writing the actual cause and the consequence. You need to connect the cause and the consequence. For inorganic chemistry, the errors might be not writing balanced chemical equation, though there are very few equations in inorganic chemistry now, because the other chapters which were very heavy on chemical equations, they have been eliminated. But still, if at all you're writing a chemical equation for the inorganic chemistry, you have to always balance. For that matter, for organic chemistry, there are lots of equations. All equations should always be balanced. Not writing balanced equation, you will surely lose marks. And it's always do or die. So it's not that you don't write a balanced equation, you lose half a mark. No, it's a do or die situation for you. Writing conditions of pressure, temperature, writing conditions, the catalyst, all these are important. And writing physical states is also, it does become important. Then, this is again the repetition. I move on now to the organic chemistry. Organic chemistry, when it comes to IUPAC nomenclature, you must know what the correct suffix is. The first alphabet of the IUPAC name of the organic compound should start with capital uppercase, capital letter. Just as when we are writing our name, the first alphabet has to be in the uppercase. Likewise, in organic chemistry, it should always start with the uppercase. Writing commas properly, writing, putting hyphen, all these things are very, very important. Because if you don't put hyphen, if you put extra space, don't put a comma, your entire answer goes wrong. What is the order of priority should be known to you of the functional groups, because based on that only will you be able to decide which is the principal functional group, which is the subordinate functional group, and which part of the IUPAC name would that be appearing in. Then, when it comes to writing the structure of the compounds, please represent the lone pair of electrons. Represent bonds at proper places. Randomly mentioning the bonds would be considered incorrect. So you can lose marks. Correct positioning of the functional group is again extremely important. You have to be careful about it. Incorrect positioning of the functional groups is an error and you lose mark. Children fail to correctly identify alpha and beta carbon. And when they fail to identify alpha beta carbons correctly, of course, other answers go wrong. A deformed aromatic ring, again, you tend to lose marks on that. Being confused regarding, does ortho-meta-para appear in the IUPAC name of the compound, or is it a part of the trivial nomenclature? Ortho-meta-para is a part of the trivial nomenclature, which means if it comes to writing the IUPAC name, you should use Hindu Arabic number as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the position is, you should use that. Because if you write ortho-meta-para for IUPAC name, of course, it's wrong then. Now, while writing chemical equation, you should show the arrows properly. Not showing arrows properly is again a very common error. You must write correctly the conditions of temperature, pressure, and catalyst. I'm sure each one of you is aware, changing temperature, changing pressure, changing catalyst might change the product. So if it is so important that if you change temperature, if you change pressure or catalyst, the product might change. It means it's also equally important to mention these correctly in your equation. So since there is a lot to remember when it comes to organic chemistry, so I had said initially that you must make it a daily practice to revise organic chemistry in writing and daily and in writing, because it's very important. You can't learn organic chemistry orally. You must know the names of the compounds. Incorrectly writing the name of the reaction or the test again will not fetch you marks. Not writing the type of the reaction. It all depends on what the question has been. Well, when it comes to attempting questions based on distinguishing test, Now, here is something which I really want to share with you. Let's say I give you a propanol and I give you propanon, and then I ask you to distinguish between the two. Just writing that the two can be distinguished with the help of iodoform test is not enough. It's just not enough. You have to write that when propanon reacts with NaOI, it gives you a yellow PPT. So what you are doing is you are writing for propanon reacting with the reagent. You're then also writing what the product is, and you are writing the observation, which is the yellow PPT. And then you need to write after this, propanon, when is treated with NaOI, sodium hypoiodide, does not give you the yellow PPT of iodoform. So you need to write the positive test and you need to write the negative test, both. And a good idea is if you support your answer with equations. When you support your answer with equation, you are eliminating any aspect of any error. But not writing observation will surely not fetch you any marks. So writing observation is very, very essential. And not writing the negative test, again, something which has to be kept in mind always. So as I mentioned here as point number 3, just writing the name of the test and not writing the explanation, you get a 0 then. Now for the reason-based question, it's again, the approach is the same. Well, I did repeat here. Now, why do students go wrong? They do go wrong because of the lack of written practice. So not everything can be learned and practiced orally. Adequate amount of written practice is imperative. They misinterpret the question. I mentioned at the start of the session, that you need to understand the language of the question because the question is communicating to you. In that moment of anxiety or panic, they do not read the question properly. Read the question very, very carefully, because those are the 3 hours you have to spend with your question paper. Unplanned answers also eventually lead to further panic. Time mismanagement also has to be taken care of well. Skipping the steps surely would mean that you will lose marks. So please make sure that you write all the steps. Now, in organic chemistry, there are lots of mechanisms. As example, hydration of alkenes to form alcohol or dehydration of alcohol to form alkene. There can be cases where the entire mechanism is asked to you. Or there can be cases where only the rate determining step is asked. So you need to read the question well. If you are asked to write only the rate determining step, you would then realize that the question carries only 1 mark. Write only 1 step, which is the slowest step. The key, the rate determining step. Because if you write all the steps, it means that, see, the marks will not be deducted, but it's ultimately you who has lost your time. So you need to read the question well and attempt the answers in a very planned manner. So here is a mixed bag of tips and tools for you. Just keep in mind, don't mix up the applications. Don't mix up on the increase and the decrease symbol. Be clear about molarity, molality. For qualitative properties, use the formula which has I. Don't confuse between positive, negative deviation. Remember, when it comes to positive, negative deviation, a positive deviation would have positive delta H, positive delta V. A negative deviation would have negative delta H and negative delta V. All 3 negatives together, all 3 positives together. Be careful about magnetic behavior. Seen children making mistakes regarding unpaired electrons leading to which type of magnetic behavior, paired electron leading to which type of magnetic behavior. Do not get confused between anode and cathode. What is anode? What is cathode? In the Nernst equation, what should go as a numerator? What should go as a denominator? Do not get confused at all. Have the balanced equation with you. Only then would you have the correct value of N. And only then would you be able to raise the concentration term to the correct power. Because if you do not raise the concentration term to the correct power, of course, your answer would go absolutely wrong. So be very, very careful about this. Log values, logs, though they are not, they have been sort of scrapped, they do give you the log value in the paper, substituted correctly. Be careful about Nernst equation. I've seen a lot of children making a lot of mistake in the Nernst equation. Ligands, be careful about the order of the strength of the ligand. Plus and the minus I effect. The oxidation state of the D block element. Calculate it correctly so as to balance the equation properly, and the concepts also, application oriented questions also well. Substitution of standard cell potential or cell potential in delta G. That delta hasn't come over here. Delta G was here. It's delta G or delta G standard formula. So when you have got standard electrode potential, your formula would be delta G standard. And there is a difference between delta G standard and delta G. Standard gives energy of change and gives energy of change. So you need to know the difference between the two and not make an error. Because if the formula is about delta E, the substitution also would go in standard delta G standard. If you write just simply delta G, you get a 0 because then your step 1, which is formula writing, has gone wrong. Just because you were supposed to write that standard symbol, which you did not write here. Be careful. And so straight away, you lose your 2 marks. Calculation of the number of moles of electrons in the redox reaction. As I mentioned, would impact your answer of the cell potential. Correct balancing of the redox reaction and the correct power, because correct power you will get from the value of n, the number of electrons in the balanced equation. You need to be careful about interconversion of cell representation to the balanced chemical equation. Well, after this, I would also like to share with you some difficulties children face regarding how to approach MCQs and reason assertion question. So you have to read the questions carefully when it comes to MCQs. Try to solve the STEM statement without looking at the option. Because mind it, the STEM statement is followed by 4 options. 1 is the correct answer. The remaining 3 may not be incorrect answer. They may just simply the distractors. So you need to choose. You need to choose which is the most correct answer. So when it is about the distractor, if you look at the answers and then try to figure out what the answer would be, you'll get distracted. So first, just looking at, unless the STEM statement really demands you to look at the options, check at the STEM statement and try to think of the answer, your concept. Let the concept roll in your mind. And then finally check, eliminate the wrong answer, eliminate the incorrect answers, and then move ahead with the correct answer. For the reason assertion question, you need to analyze the assertion statement given to you and ask keywords such as why, because, thus. And if you get the answer for your assertion statement as what is given in the reason, then of course your reason is the reason for the assertion statement. Many a times assertion and reason independently are correct. So as the first step of the strategy, read the assertion and the reason statement separately. Check for their correctness. Are they correct independently and individually, or are they incorrect? Is one of them correct? Which one? Identify that independently. And then start looking for that is the reason statement given, reason for the assertion, or is it not? Because you have got A, B, C, D as the options and you choose out of those 4. So you need to definitely, your textbook is your NCERT book is your Bible. You need to know your book in and out, including uh, including the NCERT questions as well. I would suggest that you color code your notes because that helps at the final time. Remember, with every revision, you are decreasing the time of revision. That should be your goal. There are concepts which you will be very, very sure about. Those are your strengths. And there are concepts which will be your weaknesses. Work on your strength, but work more on your weaknesses. Because your weakness will slip out of your hand more easily as compared to your strength. So this kind of strategy actually helps. Make your own notes, make a separate chart of all the formulae, make a separate chart where you have all the distinguishing test conversions. Learn for organic chemistry how you move from one chapter into the next. So to just explain this as the last part of my presentation, let's say you are talking about haloalkene, haloarene. From haloalkenes, how would you move into alcohols? How would you convert a haloalkene into an alcohol? So this is how, and from alcohol, how would you convert a given alcohol into an aldehyde? An aldehyde into a carboxylic acid into an amine. And then also learn how would you go back. Because once you know this interrelation between the chapters, mark my word, you can attempt any application-oriented question. And this is all what it is. So with these approaches, I'm sure you'll come out as winner. And with this, I finish my PPT, my presentation. If there are doubts or questions, children, you can ask me. First, I'll address a question which is above that, how to understand the conversions in organic chemistry. So for understanding the conversion, if as I mentioned the last thing of my presentation, learn how would you move from one chapter into the next chapter. As an example, how would you convert a haloalkane into an alcohol? So first thing is write the two compounds. It's given usually in words. Write the structure of the starting compound on one side of the page, on one side of your line, and the product on the other side of the line. Compare the two. What change is there? Is the functional group changing, or are the number of carbon atoms also changing? So this kind of analysis is the first thing which you should do. If only the functional group is changing, then you need to have a appropriate, maybe a chemical reaction of the starting compound, which will help to remove that starting compound, the starting functional group, and replace that with the given. Or else, if the number of carbon atoms are increasing, I'll give examples. If you are converting, let's say, chloroethane into ethanol, you're replacing Cl with OH. How can you replace Cl with OH? It's a nucleophilic substitution reaction. All the various reagents which can provide nucleophile, which is OH, can be used over here. What has to be remembered is the conditions alcoholic or aqueous. A lot of children may make mistake in terms of alcoholic or aqueous. So learn first thing, what difference is there in the starting compound and the final compound? If the number of carbon atoms are increasing, then perhaps you'll have to use reagents such as Grignard's reagent. You might have to use reagents such as KCN. You might have to make use of carbon dioxide also as one of the reagent, because these are the ones which help to increase the number of carbon atoms. If the number of carbon atoms are doubling and there are aldehyde group and alcohol group, check, is it about aldol reaction? Because there you start increasing the number of carbon atoms through aldol reaction as well. If the number of carbon atoms are decreasing, you have Hofmann-Bromamide degradation reaction. So how to approach conversion? Conversion on a separate page. Write all the chapters. Write haloalkanes, write alcohol, write aldehyde. After aldehyde, write carboxylic acid, amine. So you have on a very broad layout how you convert haloalkane into the next, further, and further. Similarly, going backward also. That is how from amine can you go back to haloalkanes, or from amine can you prepare alcohol. So you need to know all of this together. You'll have a web in front of you in your copy. Once you have this web in front of you, it becomes much easier for you to approach the conversions. I hope I have been able to answer the question based related to conversion. Now, tips for Viva preparation for chemistry practical. Now, for the Viva, there are certain chapters from where Viva questions are asked. Moreover, you should also know the steps which you are taking up for your practicals. So the work which you are doing during the practical exam, know your work well. Usually, the book which you follow for your practical has after every chapter has got some suggested Viva questions. Read those Viva questions. Read the theory. Know your procedures well. Certain theory chapters such as electrochemistry, alcohol phenols, aldehyde ketones, also coordination compound solutions. If you know these chapters, chemical kinetics also, if you know these chapters, by and large, you are able to answer Viva questions. Simplest thing to prepare for Viva, read all whatever you have written in your journal. Know your concept, know what you have done. And that is how you have your Viva preparation done. So that I look to the next question for distinguish mandatory enough because explanation. Not exactly. Supposing I talk about how would you distinguish between a primary and a secondary alcohol. Just simply writing Lucas test is not going to give you any marks. You need to write that if a primary alcohol is taken, primary alcohol reacted with, tell what Lucas reagent is. In bracket, you can write Lucas reagent as the word, but tell what Lucas reagent is. Anhydrous ZnCl2 plus concentrated HCl acting as Lucas reagent. For a 1 degree alcohol, you will not get a white PPT, turbidity will not appear. Whereas for a 2 degree alcohol, turbidity might appear after some time. For a 3 degree alcohol, turbidity will appear immediately. So what you have done is, in this explanation, you have told what the reagents are, what is the starting compound, second thing, you have told what the condition is, you have told about the positive test, and you have also told about the negative test. Mind it, all chemical reactions are not tests. Only those chemical reactions are tests which give you observations, clear-cut observations which you can see with your eyes. Maybe change in state, change in color, evolution of heat. So the observation which you are getting needs to be mentioned. Because it's as simple as that. I give you two test tubes. One test tube has got acid, the other test tube has a base. And I give you blue litmus paper. How would you know that which one is acid and which one is base? You have to dip the litmus paper in both. In one of them, you can say in which the one in which blue changes to red is the acid. The other one is base because it did not change the color. Am I clear? So likewise here also. And supporting your answer with equations is a good idea, because if in case you're going somewhere missing out on your concept, you have to communicate through your paper. Children, this is not just to chemistry, it's common to all. Through your paper, you speak to the evaluator. So your communication through your paper to the evaluator should be done complete. Incomplete communication, you don't convey completely, you don't get marks also. So you will get a hang of it. So as I mentioned, make separate notes. Perhaps have 2-3 papers with you. From all chapters, write all the distinguishing tests one after the other. Definitely giving chapter heading so that you have all the compilation of all the distinguishing tests from all the chapters. This way you would start realizing that how chemical properties of one chapter are the methods of preparation of the next chapter. And the chemical properties, the methods of preparation here, the other way around. So as I mentioned, convert an alcohol into an aldehyde. That's a chemical property of alcohol. But that becomes a method of preparation of an aldehyde. So there are a lot of overlapping zones. If you identify those overlapping zones, the content becomes less.
Ma'am,
And you get,
can
yes,
I?
beta. Yes, beta.
Yeah, ma'am, when we're doing Viva, and then you told that
Yeah,
according to the journal, we will be asked questions, right? But
yeah,
we've written many tests in our journal for salt analysis.
yeah.
But we are clear with
So for the salt, yeah, now I am clear with what your question is. Now for the salt analysis, see, there's a certain format in which your teachers must have made you write, isn't it?
yes, ma'am.
So you need to understand why this format has been given to you. because salt analysis is done through number one, preliminary examination. You need to look at the color. Sometimes just looking at the color, you can identify which cation is absent or which cation is present. So you're working through positive test, and you're also working through elimination. So there is a set of preliminary examination which you need to write, and then for each cation, there are 2 tests given, and for each anion also 2 tests are given.
Yeah.
So you'll have to learn them. As per the instructions given by the teacher, you'll have to learn them. Achha, Hema, if you could just tell me that in the preliminary examination set, what all have you been given in your journal? Because the format which I have taken up for my class might be different from what the format you all are following. So if you could quickly share that format with me, I'll tell you how to go ahead with that as well.
Can you give me a minute?
Sure. Meanwhile, if others have got some other questions to ask, because we're waiting for him to get what she wants to ask me as the question. It's maturity, color, solubility, and state. So this is the physical examination of the Archana. So this is the physical examination of the salt. So under the preliminary examination, there are other tests also. Therefore, I wanted to know what your school has guided you. If I mismatch the option letter and the answer phrase by mistake in MCQ, you have to be really careful. You have to be very, very
Ma'am,
careful.
like for example, group 2, we take
Yeah.
it to H2S in the presence of dilute HCl. And
Yeah,
for
yeah,
ammonia, we use Nestler's reagent and all that. It's
yeah,
like
yeah. So, beta, these are now the confirmatory tests you're talking about. You have moved on to the group test and the confirmatory test. I'm asking you, before the confirmatory test, after the physical examination of the salt, there are some other tests like testing dry heating the salt, testing the salt with dilute H2SO4, testing the salt with KMnO4, testing the salt with concentrated H2SO4. These are also some of the preliminary examination. As example, if you add H2SO4 into your salt and the salt gives you brisk effervescence, you have a clear-cut guideline that your salt contains carbonate in it. And then you straight away move towards the conformity test. So there's a way to approach salt analysis in a more systematic manner. Now, I will go by what you mentioned. So ammonium belongs to group 0. And you have to, first of all, eliminate group 0. So you need to, first of all, check for group 0 by taking your salt, adding concentrated NaOH, heating, adding Nestler's reagent. If you get a brown PPT, it's ammonium, or else you move ahead then. So you prepare your original solution, which is the aqueous solution. You add dilute HCl. If you get a white PPT, it is group 1 present. If you don't get a white PPT, then you pass H2S, and then you get a black PPT, which means your perhaps group 2 is present, copper might be present. If this is not so, then you move for group 3. Once you have eliminated group 3, that is taking OS, adding ammonium fluoride, boiling, cooling, adding ammonium hydroxide, you get a brown PPT. If you don't get a brown PPT, then you pass H2S. If you get any of the PPTs for group 4, then you go for group 4. If you don't get any PPT till here, then you go for group 5, and then further you move to group 6. So there is a systematic manner in which you need to proceed ahead. It's not random. So learn it this way. It's easy. It's not this difficult. It's just planning is important. Strategizing is the key part. Thank you, Veda. So Amira, if I mismatch, I can't comment, because if there is a mismatch in the option letter and the answer phrase, you might lose marks, because board does not allow us to give any marks for that, because they think the child perhaps played smart and has written both the things. Choose out of the two any. So if the evaluator gets the idea, therefore the board says, no, you can't give marks for this. So that's the proper guideline from the board, not to give marks. So avoid it.